And now we're on Daf Lamed Beis, Amid Beis. The Imisha Nignava Behemoth to Nazir. But if he was unaware of the fact at the moment that he took Nazirus that there was already a theft and his animals had already been stolen, and therefore when he took his Nazirus, it was betos, he was under the misimpression that his animals are over there in the corral, well protected, Eino Nazir. Then we have a possibility of being matir is neder, and when he says, I didn't know when I took the neder that there were no animals there, and I'd have to go out and buy animals and spend all that money, that's called chacham matir nizirusa. The chacham is going to say that that's a real valid charata, meaning he had a tos at the time of his neder. However, the Mishnah continues by telling us that there was a great Tana at the time of the Churban Abayis by the name of Nachum Hamadi, and he was mistaken about this. He didn't really understand that distinction. V'zu tol shetah Nachum Hamadi, and he thought you could be poseach and be matir and neder even with nolad, and even in a nolad that we didn't anticipate. Kisha'ol Nazirim in Agola, there were a bunch of Nazirim that came to Yerushalayim to be makriv of their korbanos at the siyum of their Nazirus, and they had accepted upon themselves Nazirus before the Churban Beis HaMikdash. Umatzu, when they came to Yerushalayim, what did they find? To their dismay, Beis HaMikdash Chareb. And now they cannot be makriv of their korbanos and complete their Nazirus. Therefore, they become what's called Nazirim Li'olam, because you can only be matir and terminate your Nazirus with korbanos, and they can't bring their korbanos. So they came to Nachum Hamadi and they wanted to get a heter on his Nazir, on their Nazirus. Amalem Nachum Hamadi, Ilu Ayisim Yodim Shebeis HaMikdash Charv Ayisim Nozrim. Would you have taken upon yourself Nazirus if you had known that you would not be able to be makriv your korbanos because of the destruction of the Mikdash, and therefore you'd be stuck with Nazirus for your entire life? Although they said, "Lo, I would never have accepted Nazirus under that assumption. I didn't anticipate that the Beis HaMikdash would be destroyed." V'tirim Nachum Hamadi. Nachum Hamadi determined that this is a valid Hataras Chacham. Why? Because they would not have taken the Nazirus according to their claim had they known that the Beis HaMikdash would be gone. And even though at the time that they took their Nazirus, there wasn't a Beis HaMikdash alive and well, and the Churban is called Nolad, and we didn't anticipate the Churban, is therefore, according to our Mishnah against Nachum Hamadi, there would be no valid basis for Hataras Chacham. Uksheba Doreis HaChachamim Amru Kol Shenazar Ad Shelo Charav Beis HaMikdash Nazir. Any Nazir who took upon himself his Nazirus while the Mikdash was standing is Ein Posche B'Nolad, even though now the Mikdash is gone. However, if he took his Nazirus Mishachara Beis HaMikdash, then if he wasn't aware of the fact, they didn't have, the kind of social media that we have today, so he was unaware of the fact that there was in fact no Mikdash when he took his Nazirus, is Eino Nazir. In such a case, we have a Poschelo B'Taina. We could be posech his Nazirus with the taina of tos, that if he would have only known that at the time that he accepted his Nazirus there was no Mikdash, he never would have accepted his Nazirus. Omar Rabba, Shtafu Rabbanan Rabbi Eliezer. Shtafu means that the Rabbanan overwhelmed Rabbi Eliezer. They bombarded him, so to speak. The Okme B'Shita, and at the end of the day, Rabbi Eliezer rescinded his original position, and he embraced the position of the Rabbanan, and he conceded that Ein Poskim bin Nolan. And Rabbi Eliezer existed also at the time of the Churban, and when the Maisa happened with Nachum Hamadi, and he realized that the Chachamim was so disappointed in Nachum Hamadi's position, then he himself, Rabbi Eliezer, also rescinded his original view. Now, where is Rabbi Eliezer? I mean, we didn't mention Rabbi Eliezer anywhere. This is a Gemara that we learned in Nedarim Adaf Samach Daled Sheposchim bin Nolan. So Rabbi Eliezer says that even if a new situation arose subsequent to the neder, but if we can be convinced that had he known about the future situation that would arise, he never would have taken the neder, and then we could be posach benola. But here we're saying that after the story of Nachum Hamadi, Rabbi Eliezer retracted his original position. And now the Gemara is going to quote this Mishnah in the Durham Daf Samach Daled, Disnan, Poschin b'nolad, Divrei Rabbi Eliezer v'chacham Mosur. So here is the original source of the machlokes as to whether or not you could be posech to be matir nidar with nola, that which we came into existence after the neder was taken. The Omar Rava, Afal Gav, the Omar Rabbanan ein poschin b'nolad, aval poschin b'tnai. What does it mean? That if he made a t'nai, as we'll soon see, then even in a case of nolad, the t'nai could be powerful enough to negate his neder. Hechidom. The Amri Lahon, the Chachamim are telling the Nazirim that we're going to be mati your Naziris that you makabel on yourself before the Churban Abayis, ilu asa inish. This is Rava's Chiddush. The Amar Lachon, this is the method by which even the Chachamim would agree that we could be matir the Naziris, even though the Churban took place later on, by pushing the Nazir, so to speak, against the wall proverbially and interrogating him and saying, would it be that at the time of the neder, somebody would come and tell you, you know what? I don't think you're doing the right thing. In my humble recommendation, it's not a good idea to make Kabbalah Naziris the Charav Beis HaMikdash because there's a good chance that the Beis HaMikdash is going to go down. Would you take the Naziris anyway? And of course, the answer would be that if they had the right Eitzah, that it's not a good time to take Nazirus, and therefore they would not have taken the Nazirus had they had gotten that Eitzah. In this case, even the Chacham would be modim that poskin es haneder. We could be matir the neder. And even though this Eitzah depends upon something that's going to be nolad, but if as a result of the Eitzah, had the Nazir received such an Eitzah, at the time of his Kabbalah's Nazirus, he never would have been Makabal his Nazirus. That's called Charata Gemura. Rav Yosef, Ihavi Hasam, if I was there at the time that the Chachamim disagreed with Nachum Hamadi, Havi Aminalon, I would have argued against the Chachamim. Why do you tell me that Churban Beis HaMikdash is Nolan? It's not Nolan. The Nevi'im, especially Yirmiyahu and Navi, already predicted the destruction of the Mikdash. So that even if the Mikdash was still standing, it was on its way down. And therefore, that's not called Nolan, because the seeds are sown at the time of his Nazirus for the Nolan. That's not Nolan. Haksiv, and I'll quote to you a pasuk in Yirmiyahu. Yirmiyahu was being, rebuking and chastising those evildoers who said, no, everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about the destruction of the Mikdash. When the Nevi'im were trying to warn the people that they better do better and improve their ways, and Yirmiyahu tells them, otherwise Hashem is certainly going to destroy the Mikdash. So these Rishonim, the cynics, they came back and they said, Al tivtchu lahem es divrei hasheker lemor, heichal Hashem, heichal Hashem, heichal Hashem heim. Rav Yosef explains, when the Navi repeats Heichal Hashem, again in the name of the Rishonim, 3 times over, basically what the Rishonim was saying is the following, Zeh Migdash Rishon, Migdash Sheni, Migdash Shlishi, that even if God will destroy the first Beis HaMikdash, don't worry about that, because there'll be a second Beis HaMikdash. And even if he'll destroy the second Beis HaMikdash, don't worry about that, there'll be a third Beis HaMikdash. Heichal Hashem times 3. And therefore, we see clearly from this pasuk that the members of that generation knew that the Beis HaMikdash would in the future be destroyed. And therefore, the Churban Abayis is not considered a Davar Nola. And we can be matir, says Rav Yosef, through this. And that's what Rav Yosef says, he's an Amora, that he would have objected and argued against the Chachamim who rejected Nachum Hamadi had he been alive at that moment. And the Gemara rejects Rav Yosef. Although there was a clear-cut nevuah that the Mikdash would be destroyed, but ultimately it would be destroyed. Nobody knew exactly when it would be destroyed. And therefore, people would accept upon themselves Nazirus, assuming that they'll get under the wire. They'll get under the wire. They'll be able to bring their Karbanos and Siyam Nazirus before the Churban Abayis. And therefore, the principle is, Ein Poskim B'Nolad. Because again, it's Nolad because since at this time we don't know about the Mikdash, we don't know the imminent destruction of the Mesa Mikdash, therefore the Kabbalas Nazirus was a full-fledged Kabbalas Nazirus. However, Abai tries to defend Rav Yosef. Are you telling me that we don't know exactly when the Churban is going to happen, and therefore the Nazirim would be Makabel Nazirus and think, oh, it's way down the line? Vaksiv, Daniel in Perek Tes tells us, Shvuim Shivim Nechtach al Amcha V'al Ir Kodshecha. This is going to be a number called 490. What does it mean? That the Gzeira of the Churban would be 70 Shmitos. Now, if you take Shemitah as 7 times 70 is 490, and they knew that between the Churban of the first bias and the Churban of the second bias would be this period of time. In other words, the Mikdash would stand and then it would be destroyed. In any event, it's clear that they knew exactly in which year the Churban Abayis would take place, and that the Mikdash would be destroyed after 490 years. So the Gemara rejects Abaye. Vakati miyadinan b'hai yom. All right, they knew the year, but they didn't know the exact day. And therefore, the Churban Abayis is still considered nolad, because they would not be inhibited about accepting that Nazirus, so they would do it with a full heart and no toes, no lack of absolute Gemiras Das, because they would think, all right, you know what, by the end of the year, maybe there'll be a Churban. But in the meantime, I got 30 days in the Nazirus, I got plenty of time to bring my Karbanos. And this leads us to the Mishnah. We've already seen this Mishnah. Let's see it again. There are 6 people walking, and there's an image of a person that's coming towards the 6 people. So we have 6 people online, and each one, single file, makes a declaration. The first one says, Hareni Nazir Shezeh Ruvain. I am a Nazir because this guy is Ruvain. I recognize it. The Echad and the second one says, Omar Hareni Nazir She'ein Zeh Ploni. I'm going to be a Nazir if it's not Ruvain. So that means that one of these 2, the first 2 of the 6, is a Nazir, the other one is not. The third guy says, Hareni Nazir She'echad Mikem Nazir. And the fourth guy says, She'ein Echad Mikem Nazir. Both of them are saying that one of them made a mistake, the other one is Chal. Again, there are 2 different nuschos, but they're both saying the same thing. And in this case, Nazir. Now we have the 5th guy on the list. He says, Shnechem Nazir. I'm going to be Makabel Nazirus because both of you are Nazir. That's impossible. Or the 6th guy says, Shekulchem Nazir. So the 5th guy said the first 2 guys on Nazirim, and the 6th guy said all 5 of you on Nazirim, plus me, I'm number 6. Is Beit Shammai Omrim Kulam Nazirim. All of them on Nazirim. Even though the first 2 are contradicting each other. And if you take the 5th and the 6th literally, then that's impossible, because it couldn't be that all of them on Nazirim, or the first 2 on Nazirim. That's impossible. But nevertheless, Beit Shammai hold, although the Lashon is, shall we say, less than conclusive, and that's an understatement, but nevertheless, we go after them Achshava. And they certainly thought that whatever they said is true, however they convinced themselves, and they accepted their Nazirus with a full heart. None of the 6 guys of Nazirim. Ella, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that none of the 6 guys. Ella Mishalon is Kaimu Dvarav. Who's not a Nazir? The one whose words were not correct. Meaning, when we find out who this guy is, so if it was in fact Ruvain, then the first guy is a Nazir, and the second guy on the list is not a Nazir, etc., etc. Rabbi Tarfon Omer ein echad mehem. Rabbi Tarfon, which I jumped a gun a little, he says that none of the 6 people on Nazirim, there's a separate halacha in Nazirus called hafla. Hafla means when a person accepts Nazirus, it has to be crystal clear and absolute vados that his Nazirus is a valid Kabbalas Nazirus. Otherwise, it's not a valid Kabbalas Nazirus. Hirtia liachorov. What happens if that person who's coming towards the 6 flies the coop and we don't know who he is? We can't identify him. He's gone. Eino Nazir. None of them are Nazirim. Now, even though it's crystal clear that one of them for sure was correct, we don't know which one, either the one who said it is Ruvain, the one who said it's not Ruvain, but nevertheless, we go into the machlokas between the Chacham and Rabbi Shimon about whether other machnis atzmo is suffolk. In this case, since we cannot identify that person who came towards them, he's gone. Therefore, the whole enterprise of the Kabbalas Nazirus is a suffolk. And the Chachamim maintain that ein other machnis atzmo is suffolk, because the repercussions of suffolk are very severe, and he'll never be able to bring his karbanos. He'll end up to be a Nazir for the rest of his life. Rabbi Shimon Omer, he disagrees, and he says that the Nazirus is chal misafek. Is Yomer em haya kidvara reini Nazir chova v'im lav nedava. Says Rabbi Shimon that there is a way out. Even if the Nazirus will be chal midin safek, there's a way in which he can bring his karbanos and terminate his Nazirus. We're asking if it's a safek, then if he brings his karbanos, it's safek chulin lazara, because maybe that person was not really Ruvain, and therefore his Nazirus was not a valid Nazirus, and then he's not a Nazir, and if he's bringing chulin lazara. So how can we allow him to bring the karbanos? So the answer, says Rabbi Shimon, is I have a takana. I have a remedy for this situation. Shetiknu kadesha lo yu nazirim liola. And what was the takana? A t'nai. He should declare the following. When I say he, it's any of the 6, right? If I really got it right, this is Reuven, then I already need Nazir Chova. I'm obligated to bring the karbanos because I accepted upon myself a valid binding Nazirus. V'im lav. However, if it turns out that it's not Reuven, then I already Nazir Nedava. I'm accepting upon myself a brand new Nazirus, and of the goodness of my heart, my own initiative, my own voluntary Nazirus. And then he can bring his karbanos Nazirus, either b'toras karbanos of chova that he was makabel on himself, and if that Nazirus was not valid because it wasn't Reuven, as it turns out, then he's going to bring his karbanos because of his new Nazirus that he was makabel then. So the Gemara asks the following kasha on Beis Hillel. Right, Beis Hillel were the one who said that if it turns out that it wasn't Reuven, his Nazirus is not chal. So the Gemara asks, Mishalon is kaimu dvar v'mai havi Nazir. The girsa in our Mishnah is a very strange girsa. Right? Let's go back to the girsa of our Mishnah. What did Beis Hillel say in our Mishnah? Where is it? Sorry. Beis Hillel said that Eino Nazir Ella Mishalonis Kaimu Dvarav. If you take that literally, it's the one who got it wrong. He's the only one who's going to be a Nazir. Amai Avi Nazir, the Gemara asks. Lonis Kaimu Dvarav, and it's Nazirus B'tos, and Beis Hillel holds Nazirus B'tos Lavi Tumen. On Rabbi Yehuda, you have to change the girsa. Ema Mishanis Kaimu Dvarav. And this leads us to Daf Lamed Gimel Amid Aleph. So let me wish you a great Shabbos, and we should have many opportunities to finish the Daf Yomi of Shabbos Lamed Gimel. Well, Lamed Gimel is a doozy. You know, it's those short amudim that are really most complicated. Okay, then. Shabbat shalom.